You're listening to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications.
What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here, right here on the Broken Havoc podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from May 23rd, 2022. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the show. Of course, we got to talk about Riddle. Riddle was involved in, I don't want to necessarily say a big angle, but from coming off of this past Friday on SmackDown, Riddle is on his own from now on. We got a lot of other things to talk about. Of course, tonight is going to be AEW Dynamite. It is the go-home Dynamite before Double or Nothing. So I'm going to be going a little bit quickly on this Raw review. We had a main event of Asuka versus Becky Lynch again. Yes, we had it again. We had Cody Rhodes also taking on The Miz again as well. So we got really a lot of things to discuss on the show. But overall thoughts on the show, I thought it was a fine episode of Raw, to be quite honest with you. I really, it wasn't like a terrible show. I thought it was a, I don't want to say like amazing, but it was a good show. It was fine for what it was. Like, overall, honestly, I don't want to be like that type of guy, but like, Raw has gotten a little bit better. But if you were to compare it to SmackDown, I mean, SmackDown is like god awful. Raw, like, in a way, Raw is better by default, but I think there's some aspects of Raw that I do and love as well. Like, I'm absolutely loving Judgment Day. Of course, we got RK Bro. The whole thing with the Usos is going on phenomenal. And, of course, we got Hell in a Cell coming up, I believe, next week as well. So we got a lot of things to talk about right here. But, of course, the big week, it's Double or Nothing week. So, really, I feel like the focus is less shined on WWE, in my eyes, at least. But before I get on to with the Raw review, make sure to like and subscribe to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the Broken Havoc podcast is available on audio platforms. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to check out those, the Broken Havoc podcast in audio format, it's available on those platforms. All right, let's talk about the show itself. Again, overall thoughts on Raw. I thought Raw was a fine show for what it was. It wasn't really that bad. I actually pretty much, I don't want to say like enjoyed watching the show, because like really for most weeks, I really do not enjoy watching Raw. Mainly because of the fact that it's the same things over and over again regarding the television. But overall, I thought Raw was pretty good. And the match that we got, yes, some of them were rematches, which you guys know I absolutely hate. But some other matches were really good as well. Riddle kicks off the show, and if you guys do not recall, this past Friday on SmackDown, Roman Reigns, yes, Roman Reigns helped the Usos win the unified WWE World Tag Team Championships, in which I thought was a really good match. Really, I thought SmackDown was not that good of a show, but really what they were building to was really only the match between both RK Bro and the Usos, and I definitely do see a rematch happening, most likely at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. But Riddle kicks off Raw, talks about how, really, before I get on with the promo that he cut, I'm just going to say right here, Riddle is more, like, his character is more of a comedic type of character, but, like, once he gets in the ring, he's, like, all the way down the business. That's what I really enjoy about Riddle. But this promo that Riddle cut, I really enjoyed the promo that Riddle cut. Like, it was a promo that really was different from all of the other promos that he would cut usually on a normal episode of Raw. But honestly, this was a really good promo that Riddle cut, and I honestly enjoyed the opening match and the opener, like the opening like segment of the show. I thought it was pretty good for what it was. But he talks about how he is here with a heavy heart. Talks about how Randy is his best friend, mentor, his dude, and he is his bro. And he hints that the last couple of years it's been hard for Randy, and they have been having the time of their lives as RK Bro. Talks about how last Friday before the unification title match, Randy could barely walk. He knew it meant to the people. RK Bro lost to the Usos. Don't get them wrong, the Usos are a great tag team, and hats off to the Usos. But for the Usos to win that way, Roman is nothing but a tribal piece of trash. So he's already digging to Roman Reigns. talks about how he assures how he will get his vengeance on Roman Reigns, Jimmy, and Jey Uso. And he swears that he will get his vengeance. And now he knows that, Randy done a lot for him, and he's done more for him than anybody else. Talks about how he loves Randy, and to be honest, he does not know what the future holds for RK Bro. He does not know if RK Bro will be a thing again, but he knows that Randy is at home watching, and he wants everybody to get up on their feet and say RK Bro, and then we get repeated and loud RK Bro chants from the crowd. To me, there was really nothing wrong about this segment. I don't know if you had a problem with this segment. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I got a kick out of this segment, to be quite honest with you. It was not a bad segment at all. But we lead to a 6-man tag team match with Riddle with the Street Profits taking on the Usos and Sami Zayn. Now, why Sami Zayn? If you guys have been watching SmackDown, Sami Zayn has been sort of a unofficial kiss ass for the Bloodline, which honestly serves no purpose. I absolutely love Sami Zayn and what he does. Like his promo work is absolutely really good, and I like his character. But this whole conspiracy theory crap has going on. It has been going on for like years now, and it's a sense of like it never stops. But overall, like this whole Sami Zayn and Bloodline thing to me is just absolutely unnecessary. That's just me. But overall, what are my thoughts on the match itself? I thought the match was pretty good for what it was. I absolutely enjoyed it. Of course, the babyfaces got the win in this match. Let's go on with the match. Basically, what happens is a brawl breaks loose when Riddle goes on and attacks the Usos. Once we're back from break, the match already starts, and then Dawkins and Sami Zayn start. Sami then goes, he does the We the Ones gesture, which was absolutely hilarious, by the way. We get a side headlock applied by Zayn. He goes for a shoulder tackle, but Dawkins no-sells it. And after that, Dawkins hits a shoulder tackle of his own. We get a drop kick by Dawkins, and then we get a spinning splash into the corner by Dawkins. At this point, Ford makes the tag. He hits a drop kick on Sami Zayn. We get a cover and an immediate kick out. Ford then goes for a wrist lock. Riddle then makes the tag. He takes out the Usos, but then Zayn goes after Riddle. Zayn at this point is still the legal man, and then he's in control over Riddle. Riddle then goes for a couple of back elbows, but then Zayn goes for the double stomp onto the back of Riddle, which looked absolutely painful. Jey Uso then makes the tag, and then Riddle takes Jey into the corner. We get repeated kicks by Riddle on Jey into the corner. We get a fisherman suplex. I believe it was a fisherman suplex or an exploder. I believe it was an exploder. My apologies. By Riddle. Ford makes the tag. He works on Jey. We get a clothesline by Ford. Jimmy then goes for the blind tag. Then Ford gets taken to the outside, and then Jimmy sends him to the steel steps, and then Ford gets hit with a super kick. Once we're back from break, Sami is in control over Montez Ford. We get a side chinlock by Sami Zayn, and then we get a takedown by Zayn, but at this point, Ford counters a side slam, and then he goes for a side slam of his own on Sami Zayn. And then Sami then takes out the babyfaces, and then Jey takes Riddle to the outside. Jey Uso then throws Riddle to the top of the barricade, but then Ford goes for an immediate inside cradle, but we get a kick out. Jey then makes the tag, and then we get repeated right hands by Jey Uso. Sami Zayn then gets taken out, and then we get an enziguri, a beautiful enziguri by Ford again. And I constantly say this whenever I talk about Montez Ford in any show. The way Montez Ford wrestles, bro, that is the guy has everything. Montez Ford has freaking everything. This guy is set to be a freaking single star. I guarantee you. But at this point, after the enziguri, the hot tag is made. We get an overhead kick by Riddle, and then we get a jumping knee by Riddle. And then he takes out both Jimmy and Sami Zayn. We get an exploder suplex by I was about to say by Ziggler. What the hell? By Riddle. And then we get another exploder on Sami Zayn. And then he goes for the Broton on Jimmy Uso. And then he goes for the Broton on Zayn. We get the flying elbow by Dawkins. Ford then hits a beautiful somersault onto the outside. Riddle then takes Zayn to the middle rope, and then he proceeds to hit an awesome-ass DDT. Then the Usos proceed to walk off, but then Riddle is just staring them right in the middle of the ring, and what does he do? He hits the freaking RKO out of nowhere on Sami Zayn, and we get a cover, and Riddle and the Street Profits get the win. Overall, this opening segment and match I had absolutely no problem with, to be quite honest with you. I definitely do see a rematch happening in the near future with RK Bro and the Usos. We're just going to have to wait how long for Randy Orton to come back. But again, I thought this segment was not bad at all. A lot of people are saying Riddle should be the guy to, challenge. He's not going to take, but challenge Roman Reigns for the championship, which I honestly do not mind that. I definitely do see Randy Orton being the catalyst for that as well. So we're gonna have to see where this angle goes, but I most likely, since we got Hell in a Cell, and since we do know that Roman Reigns is not going to be wrestling at the pay-per-view, I definitely do see a rematch happening with the Usos and RK Bro. And since, that's not going to be the main event, but it's going to be one of the main events that they definitely promote heavily. The main event that I definitely do see at the Hell in a Cell show is Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins inside Hell in a Cell, which I'm absolutely excited for. We got the Almighty Challenge with Bobby Lashley and Omos. This whole angle with this whole storyline with Omos, MVP, and Bobby Lashley, it's really not piquing my interest, to be quite honest with you. I feel like they're definitely trying extremely hard to build Omos as this unstoppable dude, but I'm gonna be honest, man, it's just not really doing me any favors. There's just nothing on this whole angle that has just really impressed me, to be quite honest with you. We had a steel cage match between Omos and Bobby Lashley last week on Raw, which, I mean, a lot of people say, oh my God, it was something different. It was a steel cage match, but let's be honest. The only reason why we got a steel cage match on Raw is because of the fact that, NBC Universal was pissed off that Fox got a steel cage match between Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn. So you know what? All WWE did was, let's give Raw a steel cage match because it happened on SmackDown. Stuff like that drives me absolutely crazy. And the same thing happened last year when they had a Hell in a Cell match between Rey Mysterio and Roman Reigns on SmackDown. NBC Universal was pissed off, so that led to WWE to book a really good match between Xavier Woods and Bobby Lashley. But at the same time, I mean, why do you have to have a Hell in a Cell match on the television if you're building up for, the pay-per-view? Again, I constantly go back to, could you imagine if, you purchased the pay-per-view? Could you imagine if the pay-per-view was actually $50 that you had to pay for? I mean, come on, you get one on television, so what's the point of really, building up to the actual show? That's just me. I mean, I know some other companies, I remember TNA would do that all the time, where I believe they would have a go-home show, for example, a Lockdown, and they would have a preview of 6 Sides of Steel. And I'm I purchased the pay-per-view so we don't have to see it on TV. I want to provide you really, your goal is to have the viewer buy the pay-per-view for what it is. Just build it up naturally instead of having the actual cage on the show. But whatever, I digress. But we got the Almighty Challenge with Bobby Lashley and Omos. Lashley cuts a promo and talks about the steel cage match last week. Talks about how their feud is far from over, and they're going to go at it one more time at Hell in a Cell. However, tonight is the Almighty Challenge, and he proceeds to call out Omos and MVP. They come out. MVP cuts a promo, and he calls himself a Maverick, and the whole world saw that big giant beat his ass in that cage last week. Says that he officially filed a complaint, but Lashley immediately interrupts. And, talks about how it's obvious that he and Omos is not over. And, he says just a regular match will not be enough to finish what they have. He wants a match tonight, and the winner of the match will pick the stipulation between him and Omos at Hell in a Cell. He has Omos at Hell in a Cell, but tonight they have unfinished business, and then he immediately points to MVP. So the match is set. We got the Almighty Bobby Lashley taking on MVP tonight. Talks about how the winner will pick the stipulation at Hell in a Cell. And then, MVP continues to rave and talks about how he made Bobby Lashley. But then Lashley states that he made MVP and he's going to push his ass into the Hurt Lock. Omos then comes in, but then MVP is from the apron. But then Lashley gets taken out by Omos. So we got MVP versus Bobby Lashley, which I'll talk about that later on this review. But really, when they talked about, whoever wins will name the stipulation of the match, I immediately, tweeted, watch WWE have the stipulation be a Hell in a Cell match. But the stipulation wasn't a Hell in a Cell match. I believe the stipulation was a handicap match. Correct me if I'm wrong. I did not write my notes on that particular case. But overall, I mean, again, this is a feud that I'm just not really invested in, to be quite honest with you. We got Becky Lynch and Adam Pearce backstage. Talks about how Asuka cheated last week and says that if Pearce took his job seriously, he would have removed that from the record. And, me, the viewer watching this, I always ask myself, what record? There's no wins and losses do not matter in WWE. If they tell you wins and losses matter, they're absolutely lying to you. But wins and losses do not matter. So, really, I asked the question, what record? But we had the main event, which was Becky Lynch versus Asuka, which we had last week because, of course, the original plan was the six-pack challenge, which that match itself made no sense. So instead, they booked after the events of Sasha and Naomi walking out, they immediately changed the main event and booked Asuka versus Becky Lynch, which was a really quick match. It was not really that long of a match. And I will say that their match this week was much better, but adding Becky Lynch into the match made no sense for me, at least, because I would have easily had Bianca Belair versus Asuka instead of having a triple threat match, but that is just me. We got a fantastic segment with Judgment Day, and the Judgment Day, of course, was talking about how all of us were sheep constantly almost every week. And again, Judgment Day is on their path on looking for a new member, and started last week, in which Edge talked about how they were looking for members, and they even targeted Liv Morgan, AJ Styles, and Finn Balor. And I made the prediction last week on the Raw review saying that, I feel like Finn Balor is really that type of guy that, may be set for joining Judgment Day. Because let's be real, like Finn Balor as a babyface, like what is Finn Balor doing? He's doing absolutely nothing. So really, what is the point of not putting Finn Balor in Judgment Day? I definitely do see some type of Bullet Club style betrayal in which I'll give you guys a scenario. Finn Balor and AJ Styles are in the center of the ring, but then Judgment Day comes in and they surround them. But then both Finn Balor and AJ Styles side by side get ready. But then all of a sudden, Finn Balor just hits the overhead kick and then immediately turns on AJ Styles. That's exactly what I see happening here. But we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of other names thrown out around the hat, like, guys like Tommaso Ciampa. There's many different possibilities here. Edge constantly on Twitter and Instagram. I believe it was on Twitter. I don't think it's Instagram, but definitely on Twitter. He keeps on posting photos of random wrestlers, basically teasing that, hey, these guys may be, set for Judgment Day. We'll have to see. But Damian Priest is the first guy to get the mic and talks about how we should all rise. And you see from behind Damian Priest, like everybody's just rising. So I love how he was controlling the audience right there. Priest continues to say all rise and show proper respect to the Judgment Day, and talks about how last week Edge offered an opportunity for them to follow the mission statement to join Judgment Day. One aspect of the statement is modesty. Rhea and him are very different from everybody else. No one knew it besides Edge, and Edge was the one that set them free. They would have been sheep if they didn't join, and the one aspect is that all that they were missing was courage. And they talked about how, be proud of who we are, and clearly none of the people have courage, and but they can help all of us, that being Judgment Day. But first, we have to help ourselves. And then Rhea gets the microphone and talks about how she knows that Liv uses her heart more than she uses her head. And she asks her to stop listening to the people on Twitter and wants her to start thinking for herself. And talks about how she should save herself, like she has saved herself by joining the Judgment Day. And then Edge grabs the mic and Edge says that Judgment Day is truth. A truth that is in front of our faces. We are just afraid to see it. Judgment Day is power. More of a physical power, but it's more than a physical power. It's a mental power. It talks about it's an opportunity to join them to rewrite their career, all sitting on their learning tree. Just imagine Tom Brady or Michael Jordan offering the olive branch, and he was given the opportunity to sit on the top of the mountain like John Cena. But most of us are afraid of hard work and success, and calls us all sheep. Because let's be real, we really are sheep. We need to join Judgment Day. And talks about how, we're afraid to grab life by the throat, but they are not afraid to do that. They offer a mentality. If they accept, we will wake up for anybody in the WWE. And talks about it's a chance to, hit the glass ceiling, and some glass ceiling he annihilated decades ago, or I should say the same glass ceiling that he annihilated decades ago. We get a bunch of "you suck" chants by the crowd, and Edge tells the crowd that, look in the mirror for that. Who's going to be their next member? Is it going to be Ciampa? He even points at Corey Graves, Alexa Bliss, Drew McIntyre, Liv Morgan, Finn Balor. What about AJ Styles? He needs to understand that standing side by side is better than standing eye to eye. And he talks about how they need to make the right choice. Maybe his kids can start calling him Uncle Edge, which that was a shot right there. And, the choice is for AJ, and he tells them to choose wisely. And then Liv Morgan comes out, And then we got AJ Styles and Liv Morgan versus Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. Where's Finn Balor? But I definitely do see a scenario in which Finn Balor is going to be the next guy to join the group because, I mean, let's be real. What is Finn Balor doing? I mean, he's doing absolutely nothing, so why not? But overall thoughts on AJ Styles and Liv Morgan versus Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. Overall, it was not a bad match whatsoever. I absolutely enjoyed the match for what it was. Hopefully, we do not get a bunch of different variety of rematches, but that's just me. But Priest and AJ start, both lock up. Priest works on the knee of AJ. We get a side headlock applied by Priest. Priest then goes for a shoulder tackle, and then we get a cover and an immediate kick out. We get a waist lock by AJ Styles, and then we get a side headlock by AJ. And then we get a drop kick by AJ, and after that, Rhea makes the tag. She proceeds to push AJ, and then we get an assist by AJ on Liv for the Hurricane Rana attempt. We get a drop kick by Liv. Liv then goes for a hip attack into the corner. Rhea then counters and hits a headbutt, and then she basically throws around Liv Morgan like a rag doll. Rhea then works on Liv into the corner, and then she throws Liv around once again. Liv then goes to the top for a crossbody, but then gets caught by Rhea. She proceeds to pick up Liv and tries to hit a delayed vertical suplex, but then Liv counters, and then she proceeds to hit the backstabber. Rhea Ripley then goes to the outside, and then Liv goes for the tope suicida. Then we get a running kick by AJ on Priest. Both get back into the ring, and they do the Too Sweet, which literally had a lot of fans on Twitter so happy, like freaking out. I mean, they're just doing the Too Sweet. I get it, but still, it doesn't matter. Liv then takes Rhea to the back of the ring, and then she runs into a kick by Rhea. We get repeated shots by Rhea Ripley after that. She proceeds to pick up Liv Morgan and finally hits the delayed vertical suplex. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a couple of body shot attempts by Rhea Ripley. Then after that, Liv goes for the Hurricane Rana once again. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a kick to the knee of Rhea. AJ then makes the tag, and then we get a kick by Priest. And then he sends AJ to the corner, but then Styles out of nowhere escapes. And then at this point, Styles is in control, but then Priest retreats to the outside. Then AJ faces Rhea Ripley, but then turns around and gets hit with a right by Damian Priest. Priest then picks up AJ to the outside and throws AJ to the ring apron. Once we're back from break, AJ then tries to make the tag, but then Priest grabs AJ, and then Priest picks up AJ, and then we get a forearm by Priest. AJ then goes for a kick, but then Priest gets taken to the outside. Priest is on the apron, but then AJ hits the Pele on Priest. Liv makes the tag, then she proceeds to work on Rhea Ripley. We get a running knee by Liv, and then she goes for a shotgun drop kick after that. Then we get a springboard double knee by Liv Morgan. We get a cover by Liv and a near fall when Edge pulls Rhea, basically puts Rhea's foot onto the top rope. Then after that, AJ then goes after Edge. AJ then goes for a clothesline on Priest onto the outside, but then Liv tries to hit the Oblivion, but then Edge interferes once again. And then we get a roll-up by Rhea, and Judgment Day gets the win. And after the match, AJ brawls with Judgment Day. Priest takes AJ, and then Edge spears AJ, and Priest goes for the sweep, which is basically their own version of Red Dragon's high-low. Let's be straight up. That's exactly what it looks like. It's just the only difference is there's a spear involved, but it's basically the high-low. I'm just going to call it the high-low at this point. But overall thoughts on the match. The match was a pretty good match for what it was. I'm absolutely loving Judgment Day. I mean, Judgment Day is really the highlights of Raw every week, and I feel like there's really no problems at all with Judgment Day. I feel like everything that Edge is doing with the faction is absolutely right and should happen, in my opinion. Judgment Day is just absolutely phenomenal. We got the King's Court with Jerry the King Lawler with the guest Veer Mahan. Jerry thanks him for joining him, and he basically asks Veer the secret to his success. Basically what happens is Jerry Lawler, constantly asks him questions, and what happens is basically Veer does not respond. But then, so the more times Veer, does not respond, the more buttons Veer, Jerry Lawler pushes for Veer. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then, Jerry continues to ask him a couple of dumb questions. And then Veer finally talks. And he basically has this really low pitched voice and talks about how he took the Mysterios out. At this point, Veer gets pissed off. And he basically, in a way, threatens Jerry Lawler. And then after that, the Mysterios come back, and they proceed to attack Veer. And then they go for multiple drop kicks by the Mysterios, but Veer does not get taken down. Veer actually constantly goes back to the apron, but we get repeated drop kicks by the Mysterios. Eventually, Veer basically leaving the ring. So overall, I mean, what was the point of this segment? Really, I didn't really care a lot about the segment. I mean, it took so long for Veer to make his debut on Raw that for me, I just cannot take Veer Mahaan seriously as much. That's just me. I'm just not really, Veer is a fantastic wrestler, but I mean, again, like, why am I supposed to care for him? If how long did it take for, like, literally, they started airing vignettes of Veer in October, and he made his official Raw debut in April. That's how crazy we're talking. Like, that's a crazy ass length of time. We get a backstage interview with Alexa Bliss and talks about how it's great to be back on Raw, and talks about how, Sonya Deville was relieved of her duties. It says it's great to be back. And we get a match between two former best friends, or two former tag team partners, Alexa Bliss and Nikki ASH, in a really short match in which nobody really cared about. Both lock up. We get an arm drag by Bliss. Bliss then offers a handshake, but then Nikki hits a right. We get multiple rights by Bliss, but at this point, Nikki is in control. She sends Bliss into the corner, and then we get a cover and a kick out. Then we get a drop kick by Bliss, and then she goes for a takedown on Nikki, but then Bliss gets taken to the top. Nikki then goes up as well, and then we get a couple of rights by Bliss taking Nikki down. Bliss then goes for the Twisted Bliss, and then we get a cover, and Alexa Bliss gets the win. I definitely did see, Alexa Bliss getting the win in this match. Honestly, I mean, it would make no sense if you just brought her back and you have her lose. That would make absolutely no sense whatsoever, but WWE did not do that. But again, do I care about this whole this match? Was this a match that that I really cared about? No, not really. We got Seth Rollins in a backstage interview, and he's asked about his feud with Cody Rhodes reaching a boiling point. Talks about how everybody used to sing his song, and now all he hears is chants of Cody, 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 which is an absolute freaking lie, because every time when Seth Rollins makes his entrance, everybody is chanting his song. Not only that, when Seth Rollins, like right at the beginning of a match, you definitely do hear the crowd just singing his theme song. So right there, you just flat out lie to the audience. But, he talks about how all he hears is Cody, 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 Cody. And then the fans actually chant Cody. And then, it talks about how it makes him physically ill to hear that name. And, Cody talks about how Cody did this. And, he talks about how pissed off he is that Cody Rhodes is basically in every aspect of WWE program. And there's even a freaking countdown clock for Cody Rhodes, which is true. Like, ever since last week, WWE started doing this countdown clock for Cody Rhodes. Like, that's how much they really believe in Cody Rhodes. Like, they dead ass have this freaking countdown clock for Cody Rhodes. That's insane. And talks about how, he asks when does it stop. Talks about how where's the countdown clock for Seth Rollins? There is a countdown clock in his head, and it's ticking away. The question is, what happens when the clock strikes 0? And then Seth ends the little backstage interview laughing. We get a backstage interview with Asuka. She talks about how Becky's not ready for Asuka because she is too busy crying, and she does a fake cry, which looked absolutely cringeworthy. I don't care what anybody says. And she proceeds to mock Asuka, she proceeds to mock Becky crying. And tonight she will beat Becky Lynch again, and she will turn Becky Lynch into a big-time baby. Great. We got Cody Rhodes versus The Miz, which I don't know why they booked this match. I mean, to me, look, we already had Cody Rhodes versus The Miz, so really, what is the point of booking the match? We couldn't have had another match. Like, have Cody Rhodes wrestle somebody else. You didn't have anybody else. You only had The Miz. I mean, we already saw that match, so what's the point of seeing it once again? But we get a bunch of Cody chants. Cody wants to go for the single leg takedown, but then Miz misses a chop. Cody goes for an overhand chop, and then we get a side headlock takeover by Miz, but then Cody fires back with the side headlock takeover of his own. We get Cody's shoulders are down, but we get a near fall. We get a roll up by Cody and another near fall. We get a drop kick by Cody, and he wants to go for the Tumpe Suicida, but then Miz hits a right hand. Miz then goes to the top, and then Miz lands a right body shot. Cody then picks up Miz and then hits a front suplex. We get a kick by Miz, but then Miz goes to the top, and then he goes for the sunset flip after that. Miz then tries to apply the figure four, but then Cody hits a knee. Then we get a knee by Cody, and then he proceeds to take out Miz. But then we get a cover and a near fall. Then Cody gets taken to the top rope in a painful way. And then we get a boot by Miz, and then he hits a second boot, taking Cody to the outside. Once we're back from break, Miz is in control. Miz then lands onto the middle turnbuckle, and then Cody proceeds to fight back. And then we get a power slam by Cody. And then Cody then goes for a right hand, and then he manages to hit the Cody cutter. Then after that, he applies the figure four, but then Miz goes to the bottom rope, and then he goes to the outside. Cody then goes to the top, and then Seth Rollins pushes Cody out and then proceeds to attack Cody Rhodes, causing the all-famous, in WWE land, the all-famous disqualification. Cody then proceeds to fight back, but then Miz gets involved. Cody then fights off Miz, and then Rollins hits a chop block. So then at this point, the heels gain advantage. But then both Miz and Rollins take Cody and then send him knee first to the announce table. Miz at this point already leaves, but then Rollins is left standing. So Rollins takes the belt away. So before the match even started, when Cody was making his entrance, and this is what I really loved. You know, a lot of people hate the DQ finishes, and I agree. I absolutely hate DQ finishes, but like I will say, after the DQ finish was made, I will say, like, the heels taking out Cody was really good. But the ending of that segment was really what I enjoyed. So when Cody Rhodes was making his entrance, usually, and we saw this in AEW constantly, and we do see this in the WWE as well, Cody Rhodes, whenever he would make his entrance and he would go to the ring, he'd basically like throw his freaking belt to the crowd. Like I can remember, you guys remember that AEW Dynamite in Chicago where Cody Rhodes was in the main event and he threw during the match his belt to the crowd and then the crowd threw it back. I mean, it did not happen here because Cody Rhodes is treated like absolute gold with the audience, but he gave it to a kid who was in ringside, who was literally like in the front row, and he gave it to this kid. But then when Seth Rollins was attacking Cody Rhodes, he basically took that belt that he took the belt from the kid and he basically whipped the hell out of Cody Rhodes. And I'm talking about, like, that was a crazy ass whip that Cody Rhodes took. But then after that, he hits the belt on Cody and then Rollins leaves. So then once Rollins leaves, the belt is left on the floor, but then Cody still grabs it and he's completely selling his knee because, of course, he landed on his knee when he was sent to the announce table, not the announce table, the steel steps. And then Cody grabs the belt and he gives it back to the kid, the same kid that he gave it earlier before his match even started. So right there, that was pure emotion. That's what I really loved. Like, you really do not see type of, stuff like that when you watch a WWE program. Let's be 100% real here. You do not see stuff like that at all. But, that would definitely be something that you would see in an AEW program. But, we did see it here. And honestly, I absolutely had no problem with it. It was definitely pure emotion right there. And, I'm absolutely excited for Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes. I mean, it's going to be an absolutely fantastic match. And hopefully it's going to top their match at WrestleMania and their match at Backlash. That is just me. We got Ezekiel versus Chad Gable for the second week in a row. I do not understand why we got this match. This is a pure example of a rematch that really does not need to happen. And that's why I'm not really a big fan of WWE programming in 2022. But when the match starts, we get a chop into the corner by Ezekiel. And then another chop by Gable. Oh, yeah, and by the way, Kevin Owens is in ringside, but he's not on commentary, unlike he was last week. Last week, during this particular match, Kevin Owens was on commentary, and he delivered some fantastic commentary. But we did not get any commentary by Kevin Owens. We get a chop. He picks up Gable up onto his shoulders. Gable escapes. Otis then interferes by pulling the leg of Ezekiel. But at this point, Gable is in control. He works on the knee of Ezekiel. At this point, Ezekiel is selling his knee. We got a Northern Leg suplex by Gable. And then Gable goes to the top, and then he hits a moonsault, but then lands into a big boot. Ezekiel then goes for a spine buster, and then we get a chop by Ezekiel into the corner. We get a splash by Ezekiel, but then Otis interferes without the referee looking. Then after that, Otis gets banned, but then Kevin Owens gets in the ring, the referee sees it, and then KO gets banned as well. We get a roll-up by Ezekiel, and then he proceeds to win the match. Ezekiel then runs off the crowd. Kevin Owens gets the microphone and challenges him to a match in Chicago at Hell in a Cell. Again, this whole Ezekiel thing is really stupid, but Kevin Owens really is the only one that makes it interesting, to be quite honest with you. We got Cody Rhodes backstage, and he's asked about the update. He talks about how his knee got digged up, and then, it's unfortunate for Seth Rollins. He talks about how he is still breathing, and talks about how at Hell in a Cell he wants to finish the job. If he wants to finish a job, he will be there. So basically, Cody Rhodes cut a really good heartfelt promo backstage. Man, if you compare Cody Rhodes to everybody else on the roster, besides like any of the top guys. Like, holy crap, man. You can definitely see the difference. Like, the difference is night and day. It's insane. We got Bobby Lashley versus MVP, which was a match, again, I didn't care about either, but we did get the stipulation. Omos is on the outside. The match starts. MVP immediately goes to the outside, and then he stretches to the outside. So MVP is really trying to escape Bobby Lashley at this point. Really, MVP didn't really do a lot in this match. But MVP goes back into the ring, but then Lashley wants to hit it right, but then MVP retreats. MVP then goes to the outside once again, but then Lashley chases MVP, and then MVP stops and misses and fake sells his knee. So once he fake sells his knee, Omos, out of nowhere, without the referee looking, hits a clothesline on Lashley onto the outside. And then Lashley goes in the ring. MVP then goes for a running boot, and then we get a couple of rights by MVP. Lashley then drives MVP face first to the mat, and then he clotheslines him on the outside as well. And then Lashley picks up MVP, and then he sends him to the ring post. MVP then gets taken to the ring, and then he proceeds to fight off Omos. Lashley then gets counted out. So, I mean, I do not like this feud, but again, this feud makes no sense because like Lashley gets counted out, and again, he makes the baby. It basically makes Lashley look dumb. I get that he was like fighting off Omos, but again, it just makes him look dumb as hell. But Lashley gets counted out, and then MVP wins the match. MVP celebrates, but then Lashley is behind MVP, and then Lashley applies the Hurt Lock on MVP. I believe the stipulation is the match is going to be a handicap match at Hell in a Cell. I think that's what they announced. I do not recall, but I believe it's going to be a handicap match. We got the main event with Becky Lynch versus Asuka. If Becky wins, she gets added to the match between Bianca Belair and Asuka at Hell in a Cell, which I do not support, mainly because of the fact that, number one, we got Asuka versus Becky Lynch. Granted, it was not really that good of a match, but we got that match already, so why are we getting it again? Plus, why are you adding Becky into the match? I mean, I do not understand that. But we got Becky Lynch versus Asuka. Bianca Belair is on commentary. The match was really good. It was much better. In my opinion, it was much better than their match at last week. Because I feel like last week, I mean, you can give an excuse considering the fact that, the original plan was a six-pack challenge. But, I mean, due to the crazy-ass circumstances that went down last week, it changed to Asuka versus Becky Lynch. But the match starts. Becky pushes around Asuka. We get a shoulder tackle by Asuka, and then we get a kick by Becky. We get a roll-up by Becky and a near fall. Then she proceeds Becky proceeds to hit a couple of slaps. Then after that, Asuka takes Becky into the corner. We get a kick by Becky, and then Asuka takes her down. Asuka then applies the disarmer, but then Becky gets her foot onto the bottom rope. Becky then goes to the outside, but then Asuka is on the apron. She proceeds to miss a kick, but then Becky goes onto the apron and pushes Asuka to the ring post. Once we're back from commercial break, Becky then goes for a baseball slide, taking Asuka back to the outside. Then she sends her to the barricade, but then Becky goes back into the ring. Asuka then actually goes back in as well, but then Becky takes Asuka out once again. Becky then goes for a flying right hand, but then sends her to the steel steps. She takes her back into the ring, and then Becky goes to the top. Becky hits her all-famous leg drop, and then we get a cover by Becky and a near fall. Asuka then takes Becky onto the outside, but then Becky comes back. Both hit a double clothesline, and then we get a back elbow by Asuka. Asuka then goes for a German suplex, and then she proceeds to hit a hip attack into the corner. We get a couple of spinning kicks and shots by Asuka. We get a running kick, and then we get a cover by Asuka and a near fall. Asuka then runs headfirst. She runs headfirst to the middle rope. We get a cover by Becky and a near fall again. Becky goes to the top, and then Asuka counters and drives her to the mat. We get a cover and another near fall. Then Asuka applies the arm bar, but then Becky goes to the bottom rope. And then Becky then drives Asuka to the top, but then Becky goes to the top as well. Asuka proceeds to hit her right, but then Asuka goes for a beautiful superplex. Then after that, we get a cover by Asuka and a near fall, but then Asuka at this point misses another hip attack attempt. Then Becky applies the disarmer onto the ropes. Asuka grabs the leg of Becky, and then she proceeds to twist it, so it basically looked like a dragon screw. Then after that, Asuka hits the hip attack, sending Becky to the outside. She drives the knee on Becky onto the outside, and then Asuka, by accident, kicks Bianca. And then Becky attacks Bianca. Then Asuka goes back into the ring, but then Becky goes for a roll-up, and then she wins the match. So she will now be added to the match between Bianca Belair and Asuka at Hell in a Cell, which I'm not really for, in my opinion, because, I mean, the match would have been totally fine if it was just Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch. That's just my opinion. I feel like there's no reason whatsoever to add Becky Lynch into this match. That is just me. That's just me. That's just how I feel. But overall, what are my thoughts on Raw? I thought Raw was a fine show for what it was. If you compare it to other episodes, possibly like other episodes were worse. But again, I mean, this episode was totally fine, but we still got really a lot of unnecessary rematches that happened on the show. But hey, what can I say? It's WWE booking for you. But yeah, that was my Raw review from May 23rd, 2022. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications to be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Broken Havoc podcast. And as always, it is Broken Havoc, signing out.